Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a new year of Sunday morning services at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of San Miguel. We hope that the past couple of weeks have been really good for you in terms of rest and reconnection, and that you're staying healthy now that we see all these viruses coming back, especially COVID. Our fellowship strives to be a loving community for each other and for our neighbors. As newcomers to Mexico and to San Miguel, whether we were newcomers 30 years ago, or like me, hardly a year and a half still, I think, or somewhere in between, I think we all feel grateful for having discovered this wonderful country and culture. As we enjoy the beauty of the climate and its people, it's good for us to remain mindful that the physical space which we share is located on the ancestral lands of the Chichimeca, the Otomi, and the Nahua peoples. We like to remind everyone that in a Unitarian Universalist fellowship, we are all welcome here in San Miguel and in every UU congregation around the world. Whatever faith, upbringing we may have had, or whatever our faith now, or perhaps nothing, we are welcome. We can walk in with our whole selves, our whole imperfect selves, and we certainly have those, and know that whatever our abilities and gifts, whatever our affectional orientations or gender identities, whatever our education or income level, whatever our thoughts and questions are about matters of faith and beyond, we're all welcome. Today's service is a perfect one to welcome the new year. And no, it's not about resolutions. We know those don't last for more than a couple days, maybe a week if we're lucky. This one's about epiphanies, and they can last a lifetime. Not the Christian meaning of an epiphany, but the more prosaic one that includes the idea of an illuminating discovery, a realization, an aha moment that most of us have had at some point in our lives. 3 of our members will share their own stories about epiphanies they've had and which have become touchstones in their lives. You can read their bio statements in the order of service. And before we move into the service, though, a few announcements, as always. Here's a mark your calendars moment. Judy Jackson, who'll speak today, is a member of our fellowship and an award-winning filmmaker. She's just completed updating an important documentary, Where Can We Live in Peace? The film tells the story of Abba House in Celaya, where migrants from throughout Central and South America, even Haiti and beyond, come to get shelter, medical care, and retraining, sometimes after horrific injuries. Abba House just celebrated their 7th anniversary, and in that time has cared for more than 80,000 migrants. It's one of the NGOs we support through our Social Action Grant program. And I mention this all because her film will be shown on January 27th, beginning at 4, at Teatro Santa Ana at the Biblioteca. So add this to your calendar. We'll remind you over time that it's coming up at the end of the month. There'll be a small admission charge, and that will go to benefit Abba House. As always, after the service, those on Zoom are invited to stay connected and visit with others in the main room for discussion. And those with us here at the Aldea, we can all meet up downstairs, outside, for coffee and cookies. And we'll continue now going outside until COVID goes away again for a while. If we have any visitors here today, if you're willing, would you stand up and let us just see who you are? And we'll have a chance to greet you after the service if you can stay a few minutes. Oh, look at all the visitors. Welcome. Welcome. If there was 1 or 2 of you, we might say introduce yourself and tell us where you're from, but then we'd be really running late. Thank you so much. And if there are any visitors on Zoom, you can write your name into the chat box so that others can greet you online after the service. And finally, just check your order of service or our website, uufsma.org, to see the various events that are sponsored and how to access previous services on our YouTube channel, and information on how to become a member should you decide you'd like to do that. So now I invite you to take a relaxing breath as we move into the really important time of our Sunday service with opening words from Kathy Canepa and the lighting of our chalice candle.
Good morning. I'm Kathy Canepa, co-chair along with Susan McDonald of the Sunday Service Committee. The word epiphany is from a Greek word meaning manifestation or appearance. It was used for the appearance of dawn, of an enemy in battle, but especially of a manifestation of a deity to a worshiper. Now, the Christian Epiphany holiday may have originated in the Greek-speaking eastern half of the Roman Empire as a feast to honor the baptism of Jesus. The scope of Epiphany expanded to include the commemoration of Jesus's birth, the visit of the Magi, all his childhood events, and the baptism by John the Baptist. In the Latin-speaking West, the holiday emphasized the visit of the Magi, the three kings. They represented the non-Jewish peoples of the world, so this was considered a revelation to the Gentiles. Here in Mexico, as we've just seen, January 6th is, of course, celebrated as Three Kings Day. Now, Unitarian Universalism is not centered on the existence or absence of a deity or deities, but rather on shared values and principles that guide each individual in living a life in a meaningful, moral, and just way. Our fourth UU principle affirms and promotes a, quote, free and responsible search for truth and meaning, close quote. Now, many faith traditions believe in the concept of heresy, any belief or theory that varies strongly with the accepted belief of the religious organization. But Unitarian Universalism is different. We encourage questioning accepted belief when such questioning leads to revealing deeper spiritual truths. We light our chalice today, a symbol of Unitarian Universalism, with words from Alice Forster. Come we now out of the darkness of our unknowing and the dusk of our dreaming. Come we now from far places. Come we now into the twilight of our awakening and the reflection of our gathering. Come we now all together. We bring unilluminated our dark caves of doubting, and we seek unbedazzled the clear light of understanding. May the sparks of our joining kindle our resolve, brighten our spirits, reflect our love, and unshadow our eyes. Come we now, enter the dawning.
I invite you all to join voices together, stand if you're willing and able, for our hymn 353. If you'd like to follow in the hymnal, the words will also be on the screen. And after we finish the song, will you remain standing for our covenant?
Golden breaks the
I will read along with the covenant in English, and Diego will join us for Spanish. We respect the interdependent web of life and work for a just and peaceful world. We encourage the search for truth and meaning, strive for compassion in relationships, and seek values that will benefit our lives and the lives of others. This is our covenant.
Respetamos todos los estilos de vida dentro de su red interdependiente y trabajamos por un mundo justo y pacífico. Alentamos la búsqueda de la verdad y la comprensión total. Nos esforzamos por mantener compasión en nuestras relaciones y buscamos valores que beneficien nuestras vidas y las vidas de los demás. Este es nuestro convenio.
Thank you all. So we will enjoy the first reflection by Rohana Laing. She's known to many, many of you here, and she would like to share her story.
Good morning. I want to begin by sharing with you how I felt encouraged to share this Epiphany story with all of you after a recent Sunday service when one of our members talked about the AAs and the UUs. Remember that one? Appropriately, one of the hymns was Amazing Grace. And I was amused to hear so many who consider themselves atheists singing their hearts out. Like the author of the hymn, I discovered faith through experience and life events, which I describe as experience over belief. My parents had rejected their ancestral Christian roots for left-wing politics, and I accepted their beliefs and still do, but one life choice took me into new territory. I wanted to be an artist. As many of you know, I still am an artist, and I chose to go to art school. There in the 60s, I encountered many new ideas, as you can imagine. For example, I remember the party at which I met Marcus, the man I later married. Young people were smoking marijuana to raise their consciousness and furtively peeking through the curtains, watching for police. It seemed a strange come-on when Marcus asked me where I believed my consciousness was. That got my attention. I responded that it was in my head, of course. He suggested I think twice about that. I did. We both read a lot, and explored with other young seekers of the time. After all, it was the 60s. Many of us found something that was, for us, meaningful. We became part of an inclusive international spiritual practice, open to people of all religions or no religion, given the acronym Subud by its Indonesian founder after 3 Sanskrit words, Susila, Buddhi, and Dharma. I began to experience what I was seeking, and I continue with that practice to this day. Fast forward 14 years. The incident at the center of my story, like many midlife crises, happened when I was 40 years old, mother of 3 growing sons, artist, co-owner of an art business, and part-time college art teacher, juggling it all like many of us have had to do. Imagine my surprise when I returned from talking to a friend who was considering doing a degree in law to have the following experience. In the middle of the night, I was awakened by a loud voice coming from inside myself, saying, "Rohana, you are supposed to be a Christian minister." My response was, "You've got to be kidding." I ignored it for about a year, but it persisted in dreams and experiences. I remember dreaming that I was standing in front of books that were called holy books, and there was information in those books that I was supposed to be learning about. Finally, I shared my story with a minister friend, and he said in a very practical way, "Why don't you take a couple of courses and see how you like it?" So the short version is that I did, and I loved it. I attended the Vancouver School of Theology in Canada, which included Unitarian students and students of many other denominations. I was attracted to Unitarianism, but I also knew I had to find work. So we have very few Unitarian churches in Canada, and as now a single mom raising 3 kids, I needed to live close to my support system. Events moved fast from there. As you gather, my marriage fell apart. I got help from scholarships, family, and friends. My sons and I moved into a low-cost university residence for 3 years, and I did a 1-year internship that was paid in Ottawa in a big congregation. I received my Master of Divinity degree after 4 years and served 5 congregations over 17 years, including 1 half-time position a few years after I retired. My sons were grown, and I took early retirement in 2003 so I could accept an expense-paid position traveling internationally to Subud congresses, giving support to members mostly in North and South America, including Mexico, and a number of trips also to Asia and Europe. I also returned to painting. These were 4 of the most challenging and satisfying years of my life, working internationally with people from many religions and cultures. Many Subud members have gone beyond the confines of religions, only following their spiritual practice. For them it is enough. But I find an inclusive congregation such as this one a very meaningful part of my life. Both groups support projects at home and internationally, helping people and the planet. In conclusion, I'll share with you that it has been very profound for me to reflect on how my life changed from what I expected. My epiphany has not only been about the voice in the night, but why my life took such a turn. I would not have pursued ministry if not for the voice. I believe now that I needed to study theology to better understand religion and life and death through teaching, speaking, conducting funerals, weddings, and counseling. International travel added to my education, leading me to discover San Miguel de Allende and this Unitarian congregation. I hope my sharing this today will encourage you to reflect on your own Epiphany experiences. Thank you.
What?
I think he's all ready for
Good morning. My name is Judy Jackson. I'm a member of this UU Fellowship, and I'm standing in today for my husband, Mark Johanningsmeyer, who's sick at home. We are now entering the very sacred time in our service. This is a time when this community acknowledges that we cannot manage on our own. We are fragile, vulnerable creatures, and we cannot survive on our own. We are also resilient, adaptable, and we learn from our mistakes. We can change course. We can nurture the gifts and strengths we hold within us. So prepare yourself to act with courage and compassion so we can choose the kind of journey we will take. Today, a few people have sent in a joy or concern. You may do this at any time during the week by sending an email to our minister, Tom Rossiello. If you have something to share with the community right now, you can also type a joy or concern into the chat box today. So our first joy is celebrating the birthday of Diane Duffy, who we are very happy to have with us today. Another joy is that several of our members have just recovered from COVID. A concern, of course, is for the health of my husband, Mark, and hopefully he will get better soon. Another joy is that Else Marie Norby has moved to a house her children have bought in Santa Cecilia. She is comfortable and happy there and would love visitors. A concern is from Andrea Kaufman. She is going to Maryland for a 5.5-hour back surgery. Bonnie, her partner, will be with her and coping with whatever the outcome is. And so Andrea's concern is for Bonnie. Let's all have a concern for both of them. Another concern is for Stan Allen, who's just had a procedure in Atlanta, and we hope he recovers and comes back here very quickly as we and Abba House need him. And similarly, Ron Kearns has COVID, and we hope that he recovers soon. Another joy we are celebrating today are two 79 birthdays, 3 days apart, for Nora Cohen, our wonderful cookie lady, and Dawn Zealot this week. Let's see. I have a concern for our government in the United States and the chaos in Congress, and hope that soon it becomes less chaotic. And we also have an ongoing concern for the people in solidarity with the people of Ukraine, especially all of those who have lost homes, livelihood, relatives, and friends. and a candle of concern for Russian soldiers serving in the invasion of Ukraine who are caught between their moral sense of right and wrong and their orders to continue the unprovoked attacks on the civilian population. And the last candle is for all the joys and concerns of all those participating in this service, which are deeply felt but have not been given voice during this time of public communal sharing. We rejoice with you. We share your sorrows, your hopes and fears. We offer this time of silence when your minds and hearts can embrace those of your neighbors. Thank you.
I now invite you into a spirit of meditation. Sit comfortably, breathe deeply. Pema Chodron tells this story. A young woman wrote about finding herself in a small town in the Middle East, surrounded by people jeering, yelling, and threatening to throw stones at her and her friends because they are Americans. Of course, she was terrified, and what happened to her is important. Suddenly, she identified with every person throughout history who had ever been scorned and hated. She understood what it was like to be despised for any reason: ethnic group, racial background, sexual preference, gender. Something just cracked wide open, and she stood in the shoes of millions of oppressed people and saw with a new perspective. She even understood her shared humanity with those who hated her. This sense of deep connection, of belonging to the same family, is the awakening of the great heart of compassion. Let us take a few moments of silence to consider the words of Thich Nhat Hanh. We are here to awaken from the illusion of our separateness. And now, please welcome Betsy Davies for our offering.
I'm Betsy Davies, and I'm the steward for Niños con Autismo. I did this before, but it didn't quite come off, so I got a second chance. For the visitors, and there are many here, we welcome you and give you a little background. We give a substantial proportion of our budget for grants to NGOs, non-governmental, nonprofit groups in San Miguel, and they're all designed to raise the ships of all the Mexican residents. We feel a deep responsibility for that. I'm the steward for Niños con Autismo, and I got to wondering how this condition is treated, autism. As a teacher, I knew my educational tools wouldn't work with autism patients. So how do you treat a child or a young adult on the autism spectrum? I arranged an appointment with Sabrina Vergara, executive director and lead therapist. This involved a visit to their new headquarters in Colonia Ignacio Ramirez, in an attractive house with a lovely grass lawn. The sensory room occupied the largest room on the first floor. It was full of items designed to stimulate taste, smell, touch, sight, and hearing. Many items crowded the room like small balls in a large container, large interlocking colored tiles with which a child was trying to make a design. Sunlight poured in through large windows. Other items used, toys and games, were piled high in two corners. There are 4 rooms on the second floor. Chatter from the 2 closed doors told us that 2 therapists were engaged in therapy. 3 others with a psychology background are part-time employees for socialization projects. Sabina directs and oversees all these programs. She's certified at the highest level. The third room was sparse in decor, except for 2 chairs and a table. Here, the emphasis was on therapist and her patient, no distractions present. They mainly consist of seeing where they are on the autism scale, assessing intelligence, etc. The 4th room is Sabrina's office, crowded with her desk, files, boxes of test materials from the Wechsler scale of intelligence, used for the 3 age-related levels. This testing is critical to determine where the patient is on the autistic spectrum. You all know that one size is supposed to fit all. It doesn't with autism. Each child has his own diagnosis and special treatment. This is what our UU grant to them helps make these tests possible. I asked about the parents, mostly mothers, who work with their children, especially with the ones who cannot talk. The parents are giving a kit of materials to use, and children choose miniature objects from a large bin to add to the kit. And there are sturdy pieces of paper with a cartoon, they're small, illustrating a verb along with a phrase, "I want" is one. A glass of water is pictured on others and written, and many things are written on others. A glass of water is pictured and written on another small card. Whoops. Sorry about that. The process is similar to learning a new language. You know how you learn the words and the verbs and you're in business. The card system eliminates a lot of frustration and violence. The cards are really the child's personal dictionary. Sabrina told me about other types of therapy in use. I hope this gives you an idea of the complexity of the treatment tailored to suit each patient's needs, the constant evaluation necessary, and the professional approach used by the 3 therapists. As we left the building, several of the young patients were celebrating the monthly birthday party with a decorated cake. They were getting many sensory experiences, running on lush grass, dealing with cake on colorful plates, and seeing the many fruit trees that were planted around the yard, and, of course, interacting with one another. I wish you could have been there. The offering will now be gratefully received. Thank you.
Our second speaker to share a reflection on a personal epiphany from her life is Geyer, who, again, many of you know, and please welcome her.
Thank you, Susan. Good morning, everyone. It's great to see all of you here. And I'm going to give you my little reflection. By the time I was 6 years old, I was already questioning the value of life. My mother had 10 children and 1 miscarriage in 13 years. She also suffered from severe depression much of her adult life, especially her early adult life. I know, kind of a wild story, right? I was the oldest child, and if I remember correctly, I was about 5 when my dad first told me to keep an eye on Mom. She'd developed an unhealthy relationship with a rather menacing-looking kitchen knife. It was long and slender, and sometimes when she washed the dishes, she held it up to the light to admire it. I remember seeing how it glistened, and I remember the eerie look on her face. Dad explained that she'd been talking about killing herself with that knife. He wanted me to keep it away from her and to find it whenever she hit it. Strange as that sounded, you would think, to a young child, when he first told me, I mean, a person wants to die, wants to actually kill themselves? At first I didn't understand it, but it didn't take long for me to get it. Deep down, I really did understand that her life was so miserable, so out of control, that death was preferable. Fear became my constant companion. Fear, foreboding, and a nagging suspicion that life might not be worth living. What's the point, I thought? All this misery and then you just die? I believed in my young 5, 6, 7-year-old self, I believed I'd stumbled upon a terrible truth that I couldn't share with anyone. I didn't think anybody really thought about this. As I grew older, I felt a huge responsibility to keep this knowledge to myself. If I told other people, I reasoned, it would contaminate their happiness. So I kept it to myself. But I actually wanted life to be worthwhile. I wanted to be happy, like other people seem to be around me, especially the people on the TV shows I watched, because that was pretty much all we did when we were kids. And I wanted an exciting life like they had. I wanted a clean, orderly house, a house that didn't have diapers all over the floor, or stacks of old newspapers, church bulletins, and grocery receipts and junk mail piled so high on the kitchen table that there was barely room to eat. And that's the truth. I longed to one day live in a calm, peaceful home where joy and harmony outweighed depression. If I could only overcome these existential doldrums and prove to myself, is it on or no? That, okay, sorry about that. If I could only prove to myself that life was worthwhile, I would be happy, or so I thought. One year, when I was in elementary school, a mobile library started coming to a parking lot just a few blocks from my house. That was the beginning of my salvation. A few years later, it was replaced by a real bricks and mortar library with huge picture windows, lots of light, and a children's book section that seemed to go on forever. It became my refuge. I lost myself in books about other cultures, other times, all kinds of mysteries and adventures that filled my mind with wonder and possibility. I remember there was one table like in the middle of the library, you know how they pull out like special books? It said 4th grade reading fun. And I was in the 4th grade. And I mean, I went through every one of those books, you know, and many more. So it was just a balm for my soul. Not that the existential angst, my personal monster, it didn't disappear. It resurfaced often enough to challenge my progress, especially during adolescence, not surprisingly. After high school, I floundered in a series of dull and unfulfilling jobs. No one in my family had gone to college, so that never seemed like an option or anything we ever talked about. But I yearned for so much more, especially when that sense of hopelessness came back again, that the monster dropped by for another visit. Okay. I should have done this so I didn't have to flip them so slow. Anyway, it was during one of those low periods that I decided to register for an evening class at the local community college in where I lived in Los Angeles. It really didn't matter what I took. I just needed to feed my mind and expand my horizon. And it made all the difference in the world. It was a lot like the children's section at the public library, only much, much bigger, and I couldn't imagine that it would ever run out of exciting opportunities. It took 5 years of night classes for me to finish my first full year of college. Then I knew I had to figure out a way to do it full time. I was completely hooked on it. I craved it. Little by little, I went on to finish community college, then university, then a master's program, all the while working to support myself. Difficult as the workload was at times, I relished every second of it. Eventually, I found meaningful work that challenged my mind and heart, and I found that life, painful as it sometimes is indeed worth living. Now, please join from your seats in our meditative hymn, Find a Stillness.
Find a stillness, hold a stillness, let the stillness carry me. Find the silence, hold the silence, let the silence carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony. Seek the essence, hold the essence, let the essence carry me. Let me flower
Okay, thanks to Anne and Rohana, our first speakers. And our third speaker is Judy Jackson, the filmmaker I mentioned during the welcome. She would like to share her personal reflection on Epiphanies. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I hate speaking in... Hi, everyone. I hate speaking in public, and I've never told this story before, so I hope I can get through it. I've made over 100 documentaries and won many prizes for my films about human rights and social justice in many parts of the world, for outlets like the BBC in England and the CBC in Canada. I'm really happy for this, but it wasn't the life I'd always dreamt of. As a post-war child growing up in England and India, my dreams were those of most little girls of that time, a happy family and a house full of children. At school, we were taught that when we left, we'd have a little job, and then we'd get married, and then, only then, we'd be happy. Later, when I moved to Canada and started to work in the media, that dream of a family and children never left me. Ed was a cameraman for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, where we both worked. We fell in love in the heady atmosphere of revolutionary Nicaragua, where we were making a documentary about the inspiring priests who follow the theology of liberation and were helping those at the grassroots struggle for change, meanwhile fighting the very traditional Nicaraguan church hierarchy. When I moved back to work in England, Ed visited whenever he could. And then happiness. I became pregnant and we decided to marry. The future I'd always dreamt of was unfolding. We decided to live in England, and Ed went back to Canada to quit his job at the CBC. A week later, I got a message saying he was in hospital. I immediately phoned, and a woman answered. "Who are you?" she asked. "I'm Ed's fiancé," I said. "He's dead," she said. A dreamed-of future erased. I don't remember much about how, because of the shock, I lost the baby, or about the next months. England at that time wasn't very good with death. People I knew would cross the street if they saw me coming, so they wouldn't need to speak to me. I felt like I had a plague. For the next few years, I spun around the world making documentaries, often in dangerous places, because I really didn't care if anything happened to me. Amazingly, the people I filmed helped me recover my first epiphany. My films focus on light in dark places, people struggling behind the headlines to bring change in dangerous situations. One, for the BBC, was about a shanty town in dictator Pinochet's Chile, where the men had all been rounded up, taken away, and disappeared in just one night. Instead of becoming victims, the women took control, and working together, developed an amazing collective community where no one was forgotten. It was life-changing for me. Even though I received death threats, and at one point, men from Pinochet's secret service came into my room intending to kill me. If these women could find a way to move forward in the face of such intense pain, so could I. There followed many years of making documentaries about human rights in many far-flung parts of the world. Some won prizes, but the ones I valued most led to ripples of change, such as a documentary for the BBC about how the police were shooting street children in Guatemala City. It was called They Shoot Children, Don't They? We continued filming even after 10 bullets were shot into our camera car. When the film was shown around the world, audiences reacted to the moving images with letters of indignation, not just to the BBC and Amnesty International, but to Guatemala. Finally, 4 policemen were imprisoned, a first for Guatemala, where no policeman had ever been imprisoned. So through the years, I made more films, moving between England and Canada, depending on where I could raise money. Then, many, many years later, amazingly, I fell in love again. I was asked to go to San Francisco to show my film about the new International Criminal Court, which is set up to punish the perpetrators of massive war crimes around the world. I had nowhere to sleep, but I remember that a man I'd met in my university years in England now lived there. So I catched a room in his flat for the night. Neil had been a well-known hand surgeon in England, but he'd given that up to focus on art, at which he was brilliant. We immediately fell deeply in love, and soon he was visiting me on the island off the British Columbia coast, where I was living. The following months were so beautiful, full of laughter, music, and fun. We bought a little plaque that said, "Never too late to fall in love." He was funny and brilliant. I loved exploring his beautiful brain, full of knowledge, of medicine, of history, Shakespeare, humor. We decided to marry. I was so happy. I'm going to live my life backwards, I thought. Huge unhappiness early, but wonderful happiness now I was older. Neil went back to San Francisco to pack and sell his flat. About a week later, he didn't pick up the phone for our daily morning call. Later that day, I found out he was in hospital, diagnosed with one of the most aggressive types of Canada. It was attacking his beautiful brain. For the next 9 months, I was in another war zone. The plans for our future, great love, erased by cancer, and then he died. Again, I don't remember much of the next years. Money was no longer available for documentaries about human rights in distant places. Instead, I must have read at least 200 books about loss and grief, along with beautiful memoirs written for lovers who have passed on. Finally, one resonated. Man's Search for Meaning. Psychotherapist Viktor Frankl related his experiences as a prisoner in Nazi concentration camps, where he lost both his parents and his wife. He noticed that those who survived best were those who continued to help others, instead of retreating into their personal despair. So, without funding, I picked up a camera, learnt to use it and learnt to edit, and found this wonderful community in San Miguel. Once again, I've been able to reinvent my life. So I think you've just heard that I've been filming at the ABBA shelter for migrants in Celaya, run by the wonderful Ignacio Ramirez. I think many of you help him, which I thank you very much for. My documentary, Where Can We Live in Peace, as has already been said, will show at the Biblioteca on Friday, January the 27th at 4 p.m, celebrating 7 years of ABBA, with a special focus on the amazing work ABBA does rehabilitating those who lose limbs when they fall from the trains, the Bestia. And I thank you all for your commitment to them and to everything. Thank you.
I have to watch my voice. Beautiful and powerful stories that our three members here have shared with us today. Thanks to all of them. We know our life epiphanies and the changes we go through are triggered by wonderful events and also by sadness. And just enormous thanks to all of them who shared these stories, and that we all share them with people we know, because it helps us, helps them. So I invite you now, I think we will stand for a hymn. The words will be on the screen, lyrics will be on the screen, and it is number 354 in your hymnal, We Laugh, We Cry.
Now, if you will join us in singing our closing hymn, 354, We Laugh, We Cry.
We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. We need to feel there's something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life and in the strength have our thoughts to receive, and we believe that sharing is an answer. A child is born among us, and we feel a special glow. We see time's endless journey as we watch the baby grow. We thrill to hear imagination freely running wild. We dedicate our minds and hearts to the spirit of this child, and we believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found a time to be together, and with the grace of age we share the wonder of youth, and we believe that growing is an answer. Our lives are full of wonder, and our time is very brief. The death of one among us fills us all with pain and grief. But as we live, so shall we die, and when our lives are done, the memories we shared with friends, they will linger on, and we believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found a place to be together. We have the right to grow. We have the gift to believe that a peace within our living is an answer. We seek elusive answers to the questions of this life. We seek to put an end to all the waste of human strife. We search for truth, equality, and blessed peace of mind. And then we come together here to see sense of what we find, and we believe in life and in the strength of love, and we have found a joy being together, and in our search for peace, maybe we'll finally see that even to question truly is an answer.
Our closing words are by Sarah York. We receive fragments of holiness, glimpses of strength, glimpses of eternity, brief moments of insight. Let us gather them up for the precious gifts that they are, and renewed by their grace, move boldly into the unknown.
Preachers, keep on preaching. Word, keep on turning, 'cause it won't be too long. Oh no. Lovers, keep on loving. Believers, keep on believing. Sleepers, just stop sleeping, 'cause it won't be too long. I'm so glad Daddy let me try it again, 'cause my last time I earned, I left the whole world of sin. I'm so glad that I know more than I knew then. Gonna